The next Tier 5 raid boss in Pokemon Go. We don't know which Pokemon it's going to be yet, but it could be the Regi-Trio. If it is, if it isn't, we're going to have to prepare for them sometime, so if you want to be prepared for the Regis, then check out this clip from our livestream SwagTips. The Regis, it's a trio, they all basically have the same counters too, so let's get into them. This is the Regirock raid, and first thing you're going to notice about this Regirock raid is that Groudon is crazy freaking good against it. Yeah, like, swagging way far ahead in TDO compared to Kyogre. And you'd be thinking like, well, it's a rock type. Wouldn't Kyogre just be super great because it gets the super effective hits in? Why is Groudon swagging so hard? Well, Groudon also gets the super effective hits in. Actually, Solar Beam is the better hit here. Despite Regirock being weak to Earthquake, Earthquake is just such a weak move and Solar Beam is such a strong move that, yeah, Groudon just beats this guy with Solar Beam. You can use either one, it'll be fine. So don't worry about using a Charge TM if you got the Earthquake Groudon. You won't get that big of a boon, but just letting you know. But yeah, Kyogre not doing so hot. And there are a couple factors here at work. As far as why Groudon's swagging so hard compared to Kyogre. So in the current game Master, Regirock is projected to have Zap Cannon. So 1/3 of Regirock encounters are going to have a huge electric type nuke. So Kyogre is not a fan of that. If I were to have made a graph that was specific to Zap Cannon, you'd see Kyogre taking a huge step back and then Groudon would just, its swag would be over 9,000. There'd be no reason to use anything but Groudon, you know? So good job there on Groudon. And another thing that's going on is that it has rock type attacks, Stone Edge, right? And Stone Edge hits Kyogre neutral, but little known fact, completely blew me out of the water. My whole life, I thought that Steel types, Fighting types, and rock types resisted rock type attacks. So in my new Tier 3 solos video, I said that Tyranitar resisted Power Gem from Starmie. Yeah, I was wrong. Somebody pointed out, and I was gonna let them know. I was gonna be like, you're wrong. I'm right. But then I checked Bulbapedia because there's always that chance that I'm wrong. And I don't wanna start riling on someone if I'm actually wrong. You know, you gotta verify these things. And so I verified it, and yeah, rock doesn't resist rock. Ground resists rock. I just never noticed because all the rock types were like rock steel, rock ground. You know, it was very uncommon to see just a pure rock type or a rock type with a subtyping while fighting a rock. It's just never come up. So I was unaware that rock is neutral to rock. But ground resists rock. So Groudon resists the Stone Edge that's in the current projected Game Master. So yeah, so resisting those two movesets, basically 2/3 of all Regirock movesets, Groudon is super swaggin' in TDO. Now it does have a Focus Blast moveset in the current Game Master, and in that fight, Kyogre is going to eke ahead a little bit in TDO, and it's still going to have the better, you know, DPS. Ever so slightly, but I think overall, if you wanted to invest in one or the other, if you're deciding where your rare candies and Stardust need to go, I'd say Groudon is the guy. I mean, adjunct counter to the Latias if you're lacking on Dragons and Tyranitars for some reason, and yeah, against Regirock, this dude is just the mad pimp swag lord himself, like, impressive. Now you're like, Ryan Swag, these are 2 legendaries, alright, and I'm only going to power up 1 to begin with, so what else is good against this giant rock? Oh, you got Machamp and Hariyama, right? Resists the rock type attacks, hits back with the super effective damage, so both very good options in this fight, and I'd say beyond these two and Machamp and Hariyama, you really don't need anything else. You can pretty much just leave it there, but if you don't want to leave it just there, you've got Mewtwo with the Focus Blast, and you've got Metagross with its Steel type attacks. Very good options. Venusaur is pretty swag, same with Exeggutor. Maybe the special Community Day Venusaur will be even swaggier, only time will tell. And yeah, Ho-Oh is even a pretty good option against this fight because it has the Steel Wing, which is super effective against Regirock, and it's got the Solar Beam, which is super effective against Regirock. It just isn't a fan of Stone Edge, isn't a fan of Zap Cannon. But the Focus Blast moveset, Ho-Oh gets a resistant, so it'll be pimping a little bit better against that one. And then beyond that, you can use any water type, a whole mess of ground types, if you need stuff to fill in the gaps. But your main picks are going to be Groudon, Kyogre, Machamp, and Hariyama. They have pretty low attack stats, relatively. They're very defensive. So because of that, these are going to be a little bit harder raids to do. Think about Claydol and how it doesn't really hurt you, but it takes forever to beat down. That's these guys, right? Blue-haired Freak. Venusaur also resists Focus Blast. Yeah, it's poison type. Executor resists Focus Blast too, and so does Mewtwo. So this is the and Gyarados. I can rope him in too. Salamence, I'm just gonna pretend you don't exist. But yeah, these guys all resist Focus Blast. So this squad basically steps up a notch when you're up against the Focus Blast moveset. Oh yeah, and I want to talk about Breloom a little bit. He's here in the back, still not being all that great. It's a high DPS option, but lower DPS than the ever so common Machamp, and as much DPS as Hariyama, much less TDO. So unless you're like a Breloom enthusiast, I don't think that there's a whole lot of reason to use Breloom over these fighters. Breloom resists Zap Cannon, so you want to use it there. Well, yeah, when you've got paper thin defenses, it doesn't matter if you get a single resist in, you're still gonna get melted. So yeah, Breloom gets smoked. So this is Registeel, the giant hunk of metal. It probably isn't a better steel type attacker than Metagross is. I think Metagross is still gonna be the steel type MVP. So the Registeel fight, it's a steel type. So yeah, Moltres and Entei totally dunk on him. And you know, the movesets, I don't really remember, so I'm going to go to Game Press. The movesets we got are Metal Claw and Rock Smash. All the Regis have Rock Smash, if I remember correctly. Metal Claw, and it's got Flash Cannon, Hyper Beam, and Focus Blast. So, yeah. And as you can see here, 143 attack, very low, but 285 defense, very high. And that is indicative of all the Regis. They don't all have the same exact stats, but they are all low attack, high defense. Hyper Beam. Nobody cares about Hyper Beam. It's a big normal hit, but no stab. And none of these counters resist it, but pretty benign. Flash Cannon, Entei and Moltres get the resist in, and then Focus Blast. That's where Moltres gets the resist in, and that's probably the main reason why Moltres is standing ahead in TDO. Usually Entei and Moltres are much more even, with Moltres having slightly better DPS. Moltres is overall a very good raiding Pokemon, and it's overall a better raiding Pokemon than Entei, depending on the moveset and the encounter and stuff like that, because Moltres handles Ice-type attacks a little bit worse than Entei does, but yada yada. But for gymming, Entei has Flamethrower, so it's a bit more useful there. So that whole Moltres-Entei debate is still active. But yeah, Moltres is looking a bit cleaner for the Registeel fight. Entei, super great. These are the supreme counters, and everything else looks like a joke. Yeah, so you see Groudon's here, and that's with the Earthquake set. So yeah, the Solar Beam is resisted by steel types. You see Hariyama again, and then what? Machamp all the way back here. So I didn't investigate it super hard, but what's likely going on here is Registeel has those single bar charge moves. It's very likely that at some level, like all things the planets align, and Hariyama crosses a significant bulk point that Machamp doesn't quite meet for the Registeel raid, and because of that, Hariyama just gets a huge boon in TDO because on average, it'll be able to survive those attacks much better. I haven't investigated the breakpoints and the bulk points of this fight. This is just like a general overview, so when the raids do come out, I'll get on them super meat and potatoes there. But for that reason, Hariyama is looking like a bit better pick for the Registeel encounter, likely at a higher level where it crosses a bulk point. But in general, Machamp's not a bad pick, high DPS option. It just looks more of like a glass cannon here. And on par with Flareon, and the reason why Machamp and Flareon are on par, even though it's a steel type encounter, is because it only has like one steel type charge move. So against all the other charge moves, these guys are more even, so they kind of line up. I included Blaziken for kicks, even though Blaziken's worse than both of them, despite trying to do both the things at the same time. Sorry Blaziken. And then Breloom is like a huge step to the left here, so I just cut him off. And if you're lacking, Heracross, Charizard are in here. Salamence, this element's unique though. It's the spicy one with the Fire Fang and the Fire Blast, so keep that in mind. Arcanine, once again, Focus Blast Mewtwo, so yeah. And Kyogre down here. Yeah, even though it resists the steel type attacks, It doesn't have super effective damage. It's got great neutral DPS, but against these Pokemon that are getting the super effective hits in and often are getting resists in, they're going to do a lot better against the Registeel fight. Let's get to Regice. Which Pokemon from this graph do you think are going to be good against the Ice type Pokemon? The first thing you'll probably notice is Ho-Oh. Where did that come from? Right? In the other raids, you know, Ho-Oh does get super effective hits in one way or another, but it really wasn't swagging. But in this fight, Ho-Oh, high TDO option. We got a tank here, right? Moltres and Entei are still going to be the best options, and Mewtwo's looking a little bit better too than it looked in the Registeel raid. The main reason for that is that Steel type resists Psychic type damage, Ice doesn't, and it still has that Focus Blast. But yeah, so the reason why Ho-Oh is rocking here is because the Regice encounter does have an Ice type charge move. So we got Blizzard, Focus Blast, and Earthquake. So when it comes to Focus Blast and Earthquake, Ho-Oh's getting a resist in. Moltres gets that same resist in too, but Ho-Oh has like higher defense stats, you know, more bulk than Moltres does. And because Ice types are weak to Steel, and because this Ice type is weak to its Stab Fire Blast, Ho-Oh gets more damage in. It gets enough damage going where it actually stands out, where in the other Regi encounters, it's more like kind of an adjunct in between everything else that's just okay. So yeah, in this fight, Ho-Oh stands out. So if you want to take your Ho-Oh for a test drive, take it out against the Regice. But in general, Moltres and Entei, still your better picks. Mewtwo is going to be great here because its Psychic type moves aren't resisted and it hits with that Focus Blast. Metagross, pretty dang good if it's not up against that Earthquake because resists the Ice and hits back with the Steel. And for more of the DPS side of the force, we got Hariyama and Machamp again. So in general, overall, if you're preparing for the Regi encounter, if you got a squad of Machamps and Hariyamas and nothing else, you're pretty much set. If you got like a Groudon, a Kyogre, a Ho-Oh, a Moltres, an Entei, a Focus Blast Mewtwo, then they all step up to the plate too. So plenty of options. And if you don't have them, then, you know, against Regice and Registeel, you can use like Flareon and Charizard as like, you know, adjuncts. And then against the Rock type, you got, you know, a whole myriad of water and ground types stepping up to the plate and the grass types to just womp. So, good deal. Yeah, tons of stuff are under 10 DPS. The reason why they got such low DPS is because the Regis have such huge defenses. So, like I said earlier, this is like kind of like the clay doll of tier 5 raid bosses. You can beat it, it's not going to be super painful, but the fight is going to take a while. And because the fight's going to take a while, then you get more charge moves, so it does make the fight a bit more painful, which, TLDR, is high defense Pokemon make for more difficult raid bosses. I mean, think about Rayquaza. Very low defenses, we can smoke them with like 4 people with hardly even trying. You don't have to be like super optimized to do a 4-man or a 5-man. For these, you need like 4 people at a minimum to clear the DPS check to beat it in time. So, I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see how we experience these fights because they are a bit unique in that respect. Will it be easier? Will it be a little bit more painful? I guess we'll see. So that was a clip from my live stream Swag Tips where I went over how to counter the 3 Regis. If you're curious on how to counter the Lati twins, I already covered that content a couple days ago. Link in the description, and I'll probably have the video that pops up in the corner eventually. I'll have it linked to that too. If you like this video, make sure to smash that like button. If you want some more swag tips, maybe get the in-depth meat and potatoes when the Regis actually come out, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or you want to see any particular content in the future, then comment below. This is how YouTube works. I ask people to do things and I hope they do it. Give Breloom that Spore. Yeah, man, if Breloom had Spore, everything would be different. Pokemon Go would be different if we had status effects. It would be an interesting thing. And if Blissey got any status move, so help us all.